But this stake in the ground thing, for me, that seemed like a bit of a metaphor for that silence. You know, we went through the really ugly stage of yes, just having numbers, or the names that were used were just made up sort of nicknames by the station managers and things like that. Not always very nice ones. And then even in death, and there's an awful lot of death, then there's a silencing there. That grave, that literal grave is of this man. A tremendous leader of the Mourning people, a great Christian, a very wise man, a very loving man. So kind of all I'm saying today is to put some effort into learning some of those stories and listening. That painting earlier, Margaret Munro, that's her dad. And you know, he's a human being just like the rest of us. And so he's got a story, he's got many layers to his life, many layers to who he is. And so I think what I hear is just people saying, please just stop and listen and hear our stories and get to know us, get to relate to us. Yes, it will be difficult. And I'm sure many people here have stories. I've got stories of coming up against very angry people. But anger is just often the public expression of pain. So yeah, you're going to get anger. And sometimes that's just too much. Sometimes when I've been on the receiving end of anger, I've reacted the wrong sort of way. It hasn't always been helpful. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult doing this sort of stuff. But that's how we grow, isn't it? We could stay in comfortable places and avoid all the awkward stuff, but we're not going to grow much that way in our faith or just as human beings. So the word silence does come out a lot. It was interesting. I didn't pick silence being associated so much with lament when I read that Brueggemann stuff. I thought, oh, that sort of made it all click. It's about speaking out and also listening, allowing, or in many ways allowing Indigenous people to speak out and hear their stories so that we can listen to their pain. And I think a lot of their frustrations come from people not listening, or them still being defined or told by others. Some of my other stories were about, there is a pointer on here, isn't there? Here it is. This, like Mourning that I talk about, down here. This is Derby. You can barely see Derby there. Broome is off the map down here somewhere. Okay? Everyone knows Broome from the weather maps. Derby's up there, it's about 200 k's to drive from Broome to Derby. And Mourning is there, but their country, where they come from, is up here. And so as soon as you start, and I think this is the case, as soon as you start getting to know anybody, particularly Aboriginal people, all those headlines that you might hear or statistics that you might hear, they're all intertwined in their personal stories. And so, you know, a community story is just been shoved from there. Like when the missionaries started up there, they said it'd be unthinkable to move from there. But later on, of course, they did because of pressure from government and so on. And they had to go to their next, Watchland, and the people, there was a government community, government reserve over here, and that was shut down, and they had to move over here too. And then that only lasted about 5 or 6 years, and they had to go down to Mountain, near Derby, closer to hospitals and education and so on, closer to Grog as well, and lots of other things. And then even from there, they got shoved to a different, they called it Old Mountain and New Mountain. So just learning any of their stories, you just interact with everyday things that are part of their stories that remind you of some of these headlines. As I said, I'll try and be a bit briefer. This lady is Pudger. She taught me to say Ngari Wanu, which is hello in Woonabbo, her language. When she was born in the bush, you know, right up in that north of Kunmanya. And just a few little things of her life were, like one of her close mates in the mission was Laurel, and Laurel was a daughter, she was Aboriginal, but she was not a local from that area. Her parents were from Cape York, and her father had been removed from his mum, and her mother was the product of a white station manager and an Aboriginal servant sort of thing. And the child came, and that was the mum. So just in that tiny little story of her playmate, you get some of the history. And they loved each other and they helped each other a lot. And they had heartbreak when Pudger's older sister with her new bub was flown away in one of the very early flying doctors. And they never saw her again because she died. And then Pudger herself married, and her first baby died in 1947 in July, and 5 kids from the same community died that same month of pneumonia. So again, that's some of the stats and things that you might hear in books and things, but it's just part of her life. And the name of that eldest child that died, his name was Gibson. And she had several other kids later, and her youngest she called Gibson as well, 20 years later. And Gibson, that younger one, he was my playmate when I was at Mourning in the 60s. We used the word Jamadi as a playmate, same age playmate. And then when she died in January 2008, that summer, 6 people died from Mountain, a community of 300. One of those was a suicide. There were also several attempted suicides. One of them was Gibson, the young son. So I did Gibson's funeral. So, you know, again, you got the gap that we hear about in terms of mortality, you know. There's 10 years later, I'm still alive, but he's not. And another man in his 30s, the chair of the community, he died that summer. And Pudger herself died. And on the day of her funeral, another son died. That sort of constant death is part of what they live through. This lady, she taught me to say Imlaru Mauna, which is saying hello, but in what order? Language, her language. Auntie Janet, we call her. And she's singing a traditional song there. You can see she's sort of digging deep and remembering. And she's a great lady, she's still alive, great strength. And but a lot of her life is as a grandparent and a great grandparent, having to bring up lots of little kids. And because of some of her kids dying and not being able to do that, and so she's had to do that. She's also had to rescue a grandchild from hanging off a tree because he tried to kill himself. And another grandchild who tried to jump off the wharf in Derby at low tide to kill himself. So all those sort of things are part of everyday life in many ways. And then this fellow, Roger, he taught me to say Amnaramingia, which is Ngarangan language, hello, for a male, that is. The other one was for a female. And he's a Ngarangan man. They all lived at Mourning, don't they? And he was he's the father of Kirsty, some of the artwork you've seen. That's her father. And he's deceased now, but he became a great Christian leader of the community as well, feeling a very strong sense of call. One time when he was in Perth for Kirsty, actually, Kirsty was in hospital, and he went down the reason I had John chapter 1, well, and Micah, it's quite simple, Micah. There's one of Michael Learning's little things, I think it's Michael Learning, who says it's as simple and as difficult as this. Love your neighbour as yourself. It's quite simple, really, but it is very difficult. And it requires quite a lot of ourselves to do that. And I think Micah's a bit like that. Love justice, love kindness.
Just me, love mercy,
Love mercy, walk humbly with your God. It's very simple, isn't it? But it can be very difficult at times. Different translations use different words. And John chapter 1, they did some translation into language in that mission up in Kunmanya that I showed you earlier. And John was one of the ones they translated. And so this passage, which in John they're using a word from a Greek culture to try and help explain some of the Christian faith to these people of a different culture. And so they use the word logos. And in Wadora they use the word ngala. In the beginning was the ngala. And that just means story or word. And the story was with God, and the ngala was God. And all things came into being through that ngala, that story. And without that ngala, not one thing came into being. So I'll leave it with that in terms of us encouraging us to seek stories, seek understanding of anybody who's different to us. It might not be an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person, it might be somebody else. Because all of us are different, and it requires a lot of work to seek understanding of other people. We don't always get there because everyone is so unique, but it's worth seeking the understanding and trying to listen, trying to hear. There's one little story that summed it up nicely of a passenger in a vehicle with a driver. I'm not sure it was actually a taxi, it was just someone being given a lift to a conference or something. And but it was a long drive, and they had a conversation, and the passenger and the driver were, almost polar opposites. They were very different in their politics, very different in their beliefs, very different in their social sort of background, very different in their economic situations, very different in their race. And yet they had a conversation, and the passenger in particular was working hard to try and understand this person who was so different. And so he had this thought later on of kind of pulling herself up sometimes to say, okay, how can I say this or ask some questions in a way that we can stay in this car together? And that was a great metaphor for hanging in there. Like Auntie Jean says, working together and working into the future together. And it is sometimes very hard work, but I encourage us to take that on. Amen.